God, Anita. Oh my God, Anita.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Willy Bragg Show. I'm your humble host, Willy Bragg, and I'm going to talk about the legacy of Mikail Gorbachev. And as you know, that he died yesterday. At the age of 91, and he died in Moscow, and he lived from 1931 until yesterday, August 30th, 2022. I try to check what he died of. According to Wikipedia, it's not really specified what his cause of death. Basically, they just said it was a prolonged illness, and I guess we will eventually find out. But for right now, it looks like I would probably say old age more than anything else. I mean, you're 91. I mean, that's to be expected. It's not going to be a shocker if somebody's goner at that point. It's not going to be all that shocking. But Mikhail Gorbachev would have been someone I would have absolutely at one time, without question, express condolences, and I will still express condolences on a human level, but with the caveat that that his legacy today would be mixed. I would have one time said he was a great man, and I'm not going to say he was a piece of shit, but his legacy was mixed. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad in Mikhail Gorbachev, and I am going to explain, and I'm going to go and get rid of this conception that most Americans got here in the United States when it comes to the Cold War and who ended it. Ronald Reagan did not end the Cold War. I want to have that. There is there are people out there that Ronald Reagan came in there and he just went and he whooped them commie ass. I stop it. That's not the way it worked out. And you have to be a partisan Kool-Aid drinking silly person to go with that kind of logic. That's not how it worked. What did the Soviet Union in was ultimately going to do the United States and it's already happening. The Soviet Union has their military industrial complex during their heyday. We do here, and that's what's doing us in, if one must know the truth. So, but there's this classic video footage from the 1980s that the I don't want to be partisan, but the other side loves parading around as if this was for real. Let me go ahead and put it up here for y'all. Give me a moment. Yeah. And they love parading this around as if this is how it happened. So I'll play this for you and I'll comment quickly and then I'll get to the meat and potatoes.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
It didn't happen like that. That's not how the wall came down. He didn't come there to West Berlin and told Mr. Gorbachev to tear down the wall. And then he was like, Sir Ronald Reagan, how quickly do you want me to tear down this wall? I mean, and that's what the Heritage Foundation Kool-Aid drinking right would love for you to think. The people who are drunk on 1993 Rush Limbaugh era talking points want you to believe. So never believe that. Okay. I'm just going to say that from the get-go. So let's talk about the late Mikail Gorbachev for a moment. Okay, let's do that. So he was some of us call him President Gorbachev. Some of us call him Premier. Some of us call him General Secretary. Take your pick. But Mikhail Gorbachev basically came in 1985, early 1985, succeeded by Konstantin Chernenko, who was pretty much a standard hardline Soviet premier or general secretary. And take your pick on what you want to call him. And he died because between 1982 and 85, it was several Soviet leaders that died. It was Brezhnev died in 82, replaced by Andropov, and replaced by Chernenko. They were just like dying like real crazy like that. Then it was Gorbachev. Now, Gorbachev was known as a reformer, and he, Glasnost and Perestroika, I think it means openness and freedom, basically was trying to reform a system that maybe was perhaps sick and needed tweaking. And I think he meant to reform the system, and it was a reform that kind of went out of his control, is kind of what happened. But I want to make a comparison between what was going on in the Soviet Union in the 1980s and China after Mao passed away in 1976 and what went on during the 1980s, which exists to this day. And you make a comparison. The Soviet Union's liberalization was based on civil liberties, basically freedom of speech, criticism of the government. Social freedoms were allowed under Gorbachev, but it was still a state-owned economy for the most part. In China, it was the opposite. It was more along the lines of free markets, but the social repression that existed under Mao, more or less, maybe not as harsh as it was under Mao, but it was still kind of a thing in China. So that kind of existed from side to side when you make the comparison. Both were trying to reform in their own way. And while the Soviet Union did ultimately collapse, China still stands. Now, there's a lot of demonization of China by the right and some by the left. There are those in this country that, and in the West, on the left, that would cheer China regardless, without question. And I don't take the let's go and criticize China at every cost and every opportunity, or do apologetics for China. I look at modern day China like I look at the United States, like I look at any other country. They got positives and they got flaws. And the positive that China's got is that they've, since the days of Mao, they did turn themselves from an agrarian society and then eventually became an advanced economy eventually. We can have a debate on how they went about it. I would not have chosen the route of Mao, but that's my take. I'm not a Maoist, but is China today more free now than it was under Days of Mao? Yes. I'm not particularly keen on their social credit system, but the United States don't have any room to criticize China for the social credit system when we already have kind of a social credit system as it is already. I mean, just about anything you do in this country will get you penalized, and we've been pretty much a punitive society for the last 40 years under neoliberalism. It's just not been as high tech as it is under the social credit system in China. But that's the subtlety that a lot of Americans don't realize. If I had to choose between the Soviet method under Gorbachev and the route that China have taken, I would have taken the Soviet route, where you would still have a relatively state-run economy, but civil liberties. I prefer that over so-called free markets and social repression, because regardless of what you think of the situation and what you thought of the Soviet Union during his existence, one thing can't be disputed, whether you're a critic or you're a supporter. And this is for those who are critical. Jobs. You were guaranteed a job. You were guaranteed health care. You were guaranteed an education. You were guaranteed housing. You were guaranteed retirement. After World War II, the Soviet Union were not always the bad guys. That's another thing. I've always kind of taken a third camp position on foreign policy. And for those who don't understand what third camp internationalism is, I'm not a practicing Trotskyist, but it is something that American Trotskyists, for the most part, have picked up, and some democratic socialists have actually embraced it in the West, and basically is a United supported, you did not support Washington nor Moscow during the Cold War. And I've taken that practice to another level. Like during the aftermath of 9/11, I would not support the neocons of the Bush-Cheney era, nor would I support jihadists in the Middle East. I was above it all. In the conflict between Russia and Ukraine today, I neither support NATO, nor do I support Russia in regard to their invasion of the Ukraine. And I certainly do not support the government of Ukraine, because I got some issues, and the West don't realize that there's a lot of authoritarianism in Ukraine right now as we speak. So there was all that. I saw an interesting debate late last night from between Bosch and Yankee Tanky while I was at work, and it was basically they were arguing over the legacy of of places like the Soviet Union and China, and Bosch has taken a which is really weird. Bosch try to come across as so revolutionary and badass, and all of that, and but he sounds so intellectual and all that, but I'm like, damn, I'm like, I'm not even the most radical person around, and when it comes to the circles of the left, I'm like, damn, I run circles around this guy. Wow, I mean, he's really so mainstream sometimes, but I was listening to him, and I was listening to Yankee Tanky, and honestly, both had some legitimate points. Both of them kind of missed the point, but that I have my own unique perspective because I'm my own person, and I can listen to legitimately all sides from and come to my own conclusions. But I mean, gosh, it just went back and forth and everything, and but as I was thinking about it, I'm going to do a little interlude for a second, and I'm just thinking, Bosch, Yankee Tanky, the West, especially the West led by America, had a lot of problems, and the Soviet Union and China had a lot of problems. If you want to know who got it right, if you had to go with a Marxist-Leninist model, if you had to know who's got it right, I'll tell you who got it right, and I'm speaking as somebody who is not a Marxist-Leninist, and it was this guy here, and they did a song about him in English. I'm talking about Field Marshal Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia. So we're going to do a little interlude for your entertainment. So please enjoy. Please do, in fact, enjoy. So here we go, and let me go ahead and get that for you, and we will go ahead and play it right now.
With great Marshal Tito, Ireland's bravest hero will be even stronger than ever. We raise our head bravely and not hung down bravely, and clench our fists hard as well. We raise our head bravely and not hung down bravely, and clench our fists hard as well. From an ancient tribe, but gods we don't subscribe, as we're children of ancient Slav. He who says otherwise merely slanders and lies, and surely will face our wrath. He who says otherwise merely slanders and lies, and surely will face our wrath. All fingers on our hands will fight to save our land, as the partisans are always spry. When we die, we don't cry to the sun or the sky, we just raise our fists on high. When we die, we don't cry to the sun or the sky, we just raise our fists on high.
Okay, the short and sweet of that was a dedication to Field Marshal Tito, and Field Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia. He was their premier, their leader, and his country, Yugoslavia, was the first country to break away very early from the Soviet bloc, the Warsaw Pact. And the Soviet Union did not go into Yugoslavia because during World War II, he and the partisans over there were effective fighters, tough fighters, and they knew they would have a fight in their hands in the Balkans if the Soviet tanks did roll into Yugoslavia. There were several attempts on Tito's life by the Soviets, but several attempts, like about 5 or 6 attempts, and it failed each time. So interesting what happened. But he kept a kind of a non-alignment, and he was not hostile really toward any country when he broke away from the Soviet influence. He had a non-antagonistic attitude toward the Soviet bloc, non-antagonistic toward the West, non-antagonistic toward the Third World, and eventually did a series of reforms in the 1960s and 70s, and Yugoslavia's economy was still a state-owned economy, state-run economy, social freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to criticize the government, that sort of thing. You can leave the country if you wanted to. You can come into the country if you wanted to. They had a nice tourism industry. The country, people had a good standard of living, but all that went down the tubes when Field Marshal Tito died in 1980, and kind of old ethnic hatreds kind of fueled back up, and now you have all these little republics down there again. You remember the Civil War in the 1990s. So, but that's beside the point. But I just thought I'd entertain you with that, a little bit of that as an kind of an interlude. But as I said, it was interesting. If you ever get a chance, it was interesting watching Bosch, do his thing, because I've always been kind of dubious, just kind of skeptical of Bosch. I make fun of him sometimes. Only use I have for Bosch really is he defends Shoe on Head when she gets unfairly attacked for being right wing, and maybe that's his only saving grace for me, honestly. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any use for Bosch. But this is the guy that he debated yesterday, Yankee Tanky. There he is. So as I said, I could put down the link if I think about it when I'm done with the video. So, but we're going to get back to the to this whole thing with the legacy of Mikail Gorbachev, because I'm going to maybe wrap it up by saying this, and that is another thing that bothers me, and this is where maybe people who are to my left may possibly have a point. I'm not ready to fully embrace it, but they may possibly have a point. And it is this: we've been living through 40 plus years of economic neoliberalism and 40 plus years of foreign policy neoconservatism, maybe a little bit longer with the neoconservatism. And thing about it is we're in the shithole we are in because of people like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, who are heralded as wonderful people in the West, when the reason why the West is a shithole that it is are people like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Now, with regard to Mikhail Gorbachev, I do think he meant well, but the problem with the demise of the Soviet Union, the downside, is that the people suffered as they were trying to adjust to the so-called new freedoms of capitalism. I am not convinced that capitalism always translates into free societies. I mean, even Milton Friedman, when he was alive, said that in order to create a capitalism that is to your liking, sometimes you have to have an authoritarian structure, kind of like what Pinochet had in Chile, or Franco in Spain, or Marcos in the Philippines, or Salazar in Portugal. And capitalism is authoritarian at the end of the day. And what happened is that people who work in the factory or worked as a teacher or whatever profession in the Soviet Union, they saved, they played by the rules, they did what they could to survive and do their part to, you know, to provide a service for their people in society. And what happened is that the rubles that they saved were worthless, and many of these people were in dire poverty. They're like they experienced such horrible poverty, and it wasn't their fault, and they suffered as a result. And Reagan and Thatcher is responsible for their suffering in that regard. Now, with regard to other things, foreign policy, there were some areas where it was not 100%. They were not 100% the bad guys. I would always have argued that in Afghanistan, the Soviets weren't the bad guys. The Soviets shouldn't have left Afghanistan. It was right for the United States to leave Afghanistan. The United States was immoral to be in Afghanistan to begin with. But the Soviets were a force for good in Afghanistan. I die on that hill. The Soviet Union supported Vietnam, at least morally, as far as going into Cambodia. And guess what they did? They liberated the people. They liberated the Cambodia from the Khmer Rouge. So down in Nicaragua, Somoza's government in Nicaragua, horrible dictator. Say what you will about Daniel Ortega and everything. They have guaranteed housing and public medical care and education, literacy that has improved people's lives. They're not in perfect shape as a society, but they have had a lot of hardships brought upon them by the United States, what the Reagan administration done in the 1980s. And so and it was nice knowing that while Thatcher was the prime minister, while the Democrats were too cowardly to support the Sandinistas, there was a lot of loud British Labour MPs in the House of Commons that were in solidarity with the Sandinistas, and right that they were. So, as I said, Mikhail Gorbachev is a mixed legacy. I'm sorry that he died. Some good things happened as the aftermath of the Soviet Union collapsing. The death penalty was abolished in 1999. As a result, the Soviet Union, Eastern Bloc countries, basically ending their systems overnight, all of them in capital punishment. And one thing that I would say is wrong with Leninist governments would be the death penalty, just like we had the death penalty here in the United States. Social democracies around the world don't have the death penalty. Name a social democracy that doesn't. So, anyway, we have here on the chat line. Okay, let's see. We have here Pecomaro, sorry to pronounce the name, XVIDA, liar. Reagan fought against Najibullah in Afghanistan and the Sandinistas. Yeah, Reagan fought against. Reagan traded arms for hostages with Iran in the 1980s. Reagan is the reason why the CIA were used to work with Panama, with Manuel Noriega, while we have a drug crisis that really exploded in the 1980s with the crack epidemic, while we have large prison cells today. What is communism if not nationalizing everything? Nationalizing everything. I am not for the nationalization of everything. But I tell you, you're not going to find democracy in putting a market price on everything. We don't have putting a market profit motive in healthcare have killed people in the United States. Our profit-driven healthcare system is evil. Let's see. Okay, somebody wants to insult. So if y'all want to see this person insult me, you can read it for yourselves. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah. Okay. Somebody wants to have an opinion. Okay, let's take a look here. Let's see. Clinton isolated Iran. Let's see. Pipeline. And I'm a liar, huh? I'm a liar. Well, you know what? You're entitled to your wrong opinions. That's all I got to say. So anyway, I was bound to have somebody that's going to hate me here. So, but that's okay. If you all like what you heard, y'all press like and comment. If you disagree, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. And let's see what else I was going to say. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we're the muckrakers of our time. And be sure to follow me here on YouTube, on Twitter, Twitch, Rumble. Although Rumble, I'll get around to it. And until next time, I'm Willie Bragg, host of the Willie Bragg Show. Take care, and we will chat later. Music.